But the recipe is you engage the market, you gather data, you're basically a Johnny Appleseed, traveling and engaging uh, as to the best of your ability to capture people that are interested, because those people aren't going to go away. That's going to be the foundation. That's the low hanging fruit, if you will.
Welcome back to the podcast. Today we got a special episode. I was recently out at the CETA show, the Cleaning Equipment Trade Association show in Phoenix, and I met some guys at a company, and I was really impressed. Completely contagious excitement and energy around what they're doing. It's a new company. The company is called BluBird, and we have Ed and Ken from BluBird here to talk a little bit about what they are doing as a newcomer in the space, and also kind of like developing this new brand built on some tried and true technology. And I'm just super excited about this episode. You guys were a lot of fun to hang out with. I wish we could have done more, but welcome to the show, Ken and Ed. So guys, and I'll let whichever one of you wants to jump in on this, but tell us a little bit about, like, what is BluBird? Like, what are we talking about here? What's the company? Give me just a little bit of feedback.
Ed, you start. You work with them. You work with the headquarters most, and I take my direction from you. Well, so you start.
Yeah. So BluBird is a subsidiary of the parent company RMX Industries, which was started over 30 years ago. It's a third generation family business, specializes in manufacturing of rubber hoses to be specific. And so they started the journey of coming to the U.S. Maybe 2 decades ago and bringing their products and innovations to the market. And so we are the number one provider of rubber hose to the retail world in the United States. So if Ken speaks of Willy Wonka, we have the Willy Wonkas back in India of sorts that are making innovative hoses, secret formulas. And in India, it's the third largest exporter in the world of rubber, and there's a huge market and industry of rubber, obviously, being that that's the third largest exporter of rubber. And there's a ton of rubber specialists and rubber engineers that specialize in trying to come up with these great compounds that end up in the consumer's hands at some point in one way or another. And it's no different for BluBird and RMX in that the team in India have concocted these special formulas that help make our products stand out amongst a pretty crowded field of products.
Yeah, and without putting the anyone watching to sleep, do you guys know anything about the rubber compounding process?
Not at all.
Right?
Not at all. I think we should dive into the depths of it.
But comes from a tree. That's
but there are recipes. They're mixing, right? You got to mix it with clay fillers. And the cheap Chinese products are made with PVC or a little bit of rubber and a lot of clay fillers. And so this supply of natural rubber gives you a competitive edge in the global marketplace for all things rubber. Like Ed said, rubber hoses for automotive, for pressure washing, it doesn't matter. And these guys, BluBird Industries and the parent company RMX, have truly perfected recipes that are proprietary. They will not share. They are like the Oompa Loompas making the chocolate back home, going, secret recipe. Get out of here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is like we've corporate secret, like the Coca-Cola recipe kind of stuff.
Yeah. We've had billion-dollar companies try to reverse engineer our product, and they can't. So that speaks.
I didn't know the world of. Sorry, Ken. So you're just a little bit delayed. I don't mean to keep cutting you off. I had no idea that was that proprietary. That, I know tire technology. I'm a big car guy, and I know that that's a really big thing. And you look at like a company like Michelin that's on like the absolute forefront of tire tread technology. They're doing something. They have some secret sauce, but it never occurred to me that in hoses and these kinds of formulations that it would be that special. I imagined it to be a commodity.
Well, I mean, there's certain markets that have made it or tried to turn it into a commodity, right? The Chinese have tried to, like Ken was saying, put some crazy fillers in there to make it cheaper, and then flood the U.S. market with it, which crushes a lot of companies. But for us, that's why we're so invested in the innovation side, because there's a better, smarter, faster way to do something, and we usually, that's what the company is trying to constantly do to figure out. When you talk about the technology itself and what's behind it, it speaks to the fact that we have produced a lot of first, best, and only class of product, and it's exciting. And what India has done is they said, okay, along with the innovative product, what we need is an innovative way to get to the market. And so what they've done is they've come out to the U.S. and they hired myself and Ken, and we are continuing to add to the team to add that extra, spice to the brand to help further differentiate the value proposition for our end customers, so we can better
Yeah,
share that message.
and don't forget that it was when you're talking about value product, value propositions for the market, you are usually dealing with China, right? You're dealing with a
Mhm.
Chinese product. And I'll tell you, it is very, very nice to be dealing with a group that's trying to keep their own secrets rather than trying to steal your secrets, right?
Right.
Yep.
And we've got, from my perspective, I'm in sales, I'm in marketing, I have a job, I make a living, but I'm an American too, right? And I understand we live in a global economy. I get it, but I don't want to be working with people that are trying to kill you and beat you and take your secrets, proprietary intellectual property constantly. So the Indians that we're working with, the RMX company, is a breath of fresh air when compared to the Chinese, which do not sit well with me.
So I'm guessing you guys like keep your stuff like off TikTok, like not doing the TikTok thing, right? Like we wouldn't, TikTok is
I've
Chinese.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
we'll be on
I'm
TikTok at some point.
yeah, I'm very but I'm very anti TikTok, and if that's the path I have to go down to be successful in getting this brand to market, we don't need that. We don't. I mean, there's plenty of
Right.
avenues to do it. I'll disagree with. I mean, there's only so much you can. You just can't feed that beast, and it's a no for me. I don't. I understand the power of it, but it doesn't mean you do it.
Do,
There's a
do you do you
right.
think though? Sorry to interrupt, Ed, but do you think Bradley? I don't think the auto mechanic in the machine shop making the decision on which air hoses and reels and equipment to put in his shop really gives a shit about TikTok. You know what I mean? That guy, our customer, the end user, and the distributors that the product moves through don't. I don't think they watch it much. I'd be surprised if they did.
I think we'd all be surprised at the demographics that get sucked into the scroll. And it might not be TikTok, but whether it's TikTok or Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts or whatever, I think you'd be surprised at the spread of demographic that consumes a lot of media in these, I mean, I'm not a fan of what it does for us as humans. Like, I'm not a fan of the short form media from that perspective. But I think we'd be surprised at the amount of it that's consumed by people that we might not expect. I'm not a fan of TikTok. I just was thinking Chinese. I was just making a tongue
No,
in
Yeah.
cheek
I,
comment.
I get it. It was very
But
funny. I thought TikTok was for girls.
what's
I
that?
No?
well, I think the only benefit of TikTok, probably for a company like you guys, would be to reach people who in like 15 years may be a customer. Like
Yeah.
like they're probably not a customer right now, but like, hey, if you can get ahead of it, maybe there's a way you can use that. I don't know if it's necessary for a company like you guys to use it,
Yeah, I
but
just don't see unless we
just
come out
knowing like the
unless we came out with something so viral. But a garden hose. I
Mhm.
mean, there's so many millions of dollars for us to go after in the retail space with the Walmarts and
Yeah.
Home Depots and all these
Right.
guys, that unless we come out with something so crazy insane that we were going to sell millions of it by launching it on a platform, I'd rather invest in Instagram or Facebook, even though I would be hesitant to do that because I'm very anti those forms anyway, but still, nonetheless, I think it's something that we would have to look at, but not TikTok. Harsh
We could
no,
do
Brad.
we could do an instructional. We could do an instructional video on short form on rapid tie and show how to tie people up with it. That would be
Well,
entertaining.
here's an idea for you guys, because your hose it's different because it's got a Kevlar lining. My thought goes to, why not make a video to see how many hoses it would take to stop a bullet? Like that seems interesting to me. Like it's Kevlar.
We should definitely try that, Ryan, with you.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Yeah, you do a few tests, and I'll go stand behind some of your pressure hoses. And
you don't want to do that.
We've talked about that one. We've actually talked about that one, Ryan. And I think when we go back to India in December, they're going to be doing that with us unless we hit our sales numbers. So we'll see.
Yeah. Send me a few hundred sample hoses, and then I'll take it out to the shooting range, and I'll line them up, and I'll let you know.
So that must be pretty exciting, though. I mean, with India being the next big emerging economy, and for you guys to get to be a part of the innovation and things that are coming out of there, I mean, I would think that's a pretty exciting place to be, because, you know, I've read nothing but exciting things the past 10 years about the possibilities of what Indian business and where that's going to go as they emerge as the next, you know, major innovation hub and economy in the world.
Yeah, I mean, they're population-wise, they're number one in the world now. And you know, if you look at many of your Fortune 500 companies, a lot of them, you know, doctors, Fortune 500 CEOs, they're Indian, you know, and it's a hotbed of activity. And Walmart is committed to $10 billion sourcing from India in the next 5 to 7 years. Tesla has a factory that's going in there. Apple's moving iPhone manufacturing in there, you know, based off the geopolitical climate and the risk exposure that many people are afraid of when it comes to, especially when you talk about China and Taiwan and that conflict that could brew any time. Many businesses are trying to hedge and shift their focus over to India, over to China. Plus, you know, it's a democracy. India is a democracy. It's not a communist country. So that you know, it's pro-US.
Yeah, and I will say this, because I have been there a couple of times. It's a very tolerant nation, right? They tolerate multiple religions, multiple languages, and they all seem to get along. So unlike, you know, I mean, we got the Middle East is absolutely blowing up right now, and we'll see where that goes. But you have the constant threat of China and the United States becoming deadly enemies at any given time, and then you got very peaceful India that's like Ed said. I mean, I got 2 doctors that are Indian, right? And the CEOs of the Fortune for Apple, Indian. So you're right, Brad. It's an up and coming country.
So you guys, I mean, with BluBird, and we talked a little bit about this off air, and I think this is probably I hope it's a fascinating topic for me. So that's really all that matters. Is you guys, the BluBird name is fairly new. It's a new brand. You guys are bringing it into new spaces. And what does that look like? Your go-to-market, bringing a new brand. I know you guys talked a little bit about having some philosophy around that, some very, like, you know, a pattern, you know, for success, a formula, if you will. I'd like to talk a little bit about what does that look like for you guys. I mean, as much as you're willing to, like, let us, like, peek behind the curtain of your viewpoint on strategy for a new brand go-to-market.
Yeah, Ed needs to field this question because it's his recipe. We haven't always worked together over the last 2 decades, but when we do, it's always successful. And I will say it's his recipe. Ed, why don't you address how we go to market?
Well, it's never just one way. I always think it's multiple facets to make an organization successful, and I don't think that's really a secret. If it has to be one direction, it's not going to be the right direction typically. So we deploy a multifaceted approach to cultivating a market. And so when you're doing the heavy lifting that we are hired to do, I call it, you know, in ways we're mercenaries on bringing a brand to market that isn't overly exciting products, but there's a lot of runway with the product offering. So with something like BluBird, we look how does BluBird go to market currently, and we define that. Typically, we hire additional sales reps. Nothing, no secret sauce there. We combine it with an aggressive marketing campaign through a number of different outlets. We look to exploit a properly developed website that's going to reach the audience. And it's a lot of just basic blocking and tackling sales 101, where, a lot of companies these days rely so heavily on technology to reach their customer base. And you have to have that piece, but you got to also have the people that are passionately out in the market, calling on customers actively and following up. It's the basics. And we manage to those basics using technology to help us. So
Yeah,
I'm not going to wow you if you think about these ingredients. They're all basic, but it's how you oversee them, and you inspect what you expect, and that's really all it really is, and that's what we do, and we've done at two other organizations beside this one, and made them
yeah,
resounding successes.
yeah, and I would add to that Ed's correct. Everyone knows how to do it. Every salesperson, sales manager knows that it's the fifth time that you ask the customer and engage with the customer that 85% of those opportunities closed one, right? You got the sale. It's the 17th to 20th time, whatever your metrics are. Everybody knows that that's the case, but so few people do it.
Yeah, it's 15 to 20 engagements just to close a deal on average. And most of the salespeople in this world crap out after three. And if you're crapping out after three and that's your run rate, you're going to have a horrible close ratio. If you can stay diligent to the process, you will literally your close rate will dramatically double, triple by just simply following up with the customer, because most of your competition doesn't do it because they don't care. And Ken and I care. And when we hire people that care, we don't want people on our team that don't care. If you don't care
Yeah,
about the customer servicing them, then we don't want you a part of our organization.
yeah, and we're kind of leaving out or not talking about so many manufacturers that we've met hire outside reps, right, or even internal direct representatives of their company, and they don't manage them. They say here, because you know what, most people are lazy, right? A driven person is a rare person. A passionate person that engages is rare. Most people are complacent. Most people want to talk about can't wait to get to Friday so they can start working on their car, or dial in their fantasy football team. Right? We're in football season, but here we got manufacturer reps, and if we left them completely alone, that would be our fault. We'd be setting them up for failure. So we have to engage them, and then that engagement forces the engagement in the field, and that's where the winning comes from. So often, it's something that it's not a secret, like Ed said, but it's that management of it and the diligence of it that yields all the new accounts and the revenue.
And it's also the expectations. It's also the expectation of who you're doing the work for. As hired, people for for RMX BluBird, their expectations are that we're going to have a playoff bound team the first season, and that ain't going to happen unless you're going to let me, go and pay for all the top performers and star athletes and put them on my sideline. That's not going to happen. It takes 18 to 24 months if you're diligent to cultivate a market with a particular brand or a particular product. If I'm talking about something that's not viral, I'm talking about something that's hard to do, which is what we're doing. We're taking a rubber hose that transfers some type of air or water liquid in it and try to convince the market that, hey, don't buy that cheap Chinese piece of crap. Buy this high quality product that you're going to be happy with over the long term, and your customers are going to be happy. And that's a difficult challenge. It's like, this is a true heavy lifting in trying to get this brand, or getting a brand like that to the market and being successful with it. And so far, we've had tremendous success. Our close rate is close to 50%.
Yeah, and it's not a rubber hoses are not sexy,
Yeah.
unless of course that's what you like.
So what's the strategy there then? I mean, is it because entering into new markets hard? I did it with a product a few years ago, and it takes a lot of legwork. Is it like, hey, we just want to be the just over time, like, because that's one way you can go, right? We can say, hey, we are more durable. Eventually, people are going to find out, word of mouth. Or do you use media content, or do you use just like super aggressive sales tactics, or what is like, how do you enter into that market when you know you have a better product? Like, people don't know that, but what is your process to get people to know that?
So you have to conduct, the first thing that we did out of the gate was understand the key features and benefits of our product, and then take that information and run a complete competitive analysis. And we're talking about 3 industry categories, right? You've got pressure washing, which that's how we met you guys. You have water / lawn and garden. Um, there's construction grade water hoses as well, but let's just say water. And then you've got air, and primarily the company's background was automotive. So you look at your top competitors there, and you run your key features and benefits against their key features and benefits, and then you do a cost analysis, and you find out where you need to be competitive, and then you take all that data. You fine tune the descriptions and the names of your product. And we're still in the process of this to a major degree. And you build a vehicle, right? A content management system and website so that people have a place to go, a home base, right? And then you gotta create mechanisms that track who's coming, why they're coming, what's leading them there, and then you start to develop and cultivate your marketing through the messaging, through TikTok, through social media, through nurture campaigns, workflow campaigns, and you begin to bring people into your database. And then you got to stay in communication, but not too much communication, right? And you draw them in, but you send them to the website so you can track it. And that's basically a lead generation mechanism, and that's a tremendously important part of what it is that we're doing.
Our close rate when we get to the pitch process is literally 50% higher. And it's because we've been able to craft the messaging well. That's key, is to know what our value position is into the marketplace, and then knowing what you're selling to the market, and if the product actually matches to what you're saying it can do. But that's when the effort becomes, I would say, much easier, when you get that cadence going and moving to the same beat. And we're getting to that point. We're only in the 13th month. I reminded the owners, our ownership group, the board, and we're only in our 13th month of this journey. And we've had amazing success with just starting this from a seedling. I always say, a successful company is a company that's not planting a seed and pulling it up every 2 weeks and replanting it, and pulling it up every 2 weeks and replanting
Why
it.
doesn't this carrot grow?
Yeah, exactly.
We did
Yep.
it made me think about this year we did a garden, and like, I'm kind of learning, how to like tell when things like potatoes and onions are ready. So yeah, every couple of weeks I might have dug up a potato or onion just to see what's happening under the ground. It's not a good way to grow things. So I'm just,
it's not ready. Stick it back in there, and
But people
I don't think those made it.
Yeah, people do it though.
But I think, and I'm very interested in this idea of building a sales organization in 2023. It's changed a lot in the past 20 years, in the past 10 years, how people respond. I'd say today it's harder than ever to think that we're going to pick up the phone and call potential customers and think that they're going to be receptive on the other end. I mean, it's the bar is as high as it's ever been to get someone's attention. People get information in other ways. What does your process look like? Like, how do you guys approach that and still come in and have success in sales when people are more turned off to that traditional outbound?
Well,
Go ahead.
Well, one of the things we do is we look to partner with groups like CETA, and CETA is just one of maybe 10 organizations that we're partnered with, because what you're looking for is a permission of sorts to engage somebody. And that in today's noisy environment, you're right, with everything that's going on in their life, the last thing they want to do is have to pick up that phone that's ringing in their office. So we look for paths of least resistance to get that permission of acceptance of us engaging them. So organizations like CETA, the huge group, which is another pressure washing convention of sorts, and then we belong to about 7 other buying groups. And those buying groups are a consortium of like-minded distribution companies that welcome that engagement. So that's our path of least resistance. And it's already like, yes, I understand who you are. I'm willing to grant you permission to speak to me because I think what you have is of value because we're part of the same network. We're part of the same neighborhood. And so that's what we look to utilize. It's just a little more clever way than just cold calling and picking up the phone. I agree with you. That's a very difficult challenge.
I mean, there was a time, there was a time when salesmen got in their car and they just went from business to business because that's how people found out about things. I know that it is a lot more. The other thing that you touched on that I think kind of raises some questions. Like we all know the follow-up, the fortunes in the follow-up, or I think that's the saying, if you will. But sometimes doing a lot of follow-ups can, I guess, either be boring or monotonous. When you guys are thinking and you're looking at a sale and you're like, okay, it's going to take 20 touches, 20 outreaches before we close this. Do you kind of have a formula for like some different things that you do? Do you have all right, we put it in the calendar, we're just going to call them. We're going to call them 20 times. Or do I'm like, you know what, I've kind of got this one thing I send them and then we've kind of, what does that look like to one, keep your guys consistent and two, keep the customer interested over that many interactions?
So and Ed touched on this, there's low-hanging fruit to go gather in the beginning. So we have reps, right? So at one point, I think we had 126 reps. Now we have about 68, 75, right in that range. So we've already in 13 months gotten rid of some of them. But what happened when we engaged with our reps and went through a target market mapping process, which happened in the first 4 months, we found customers that they have developed relationships with that we did not know. So that is not a cold lead. It's not a cold call. It's not a 20 count follow up for us. It's we've hired a guy that's got buddies in his market, and we set up meetings. We go out there, we sign up a new account because they want to do it. They want to help their friend who's our rep. So that's low hanging fruit. And that's where we need to Ed's point, that's where we have to spend the beginning stages of our adventure and the sales approach. If we started dialing for donuts, that would be a big mistake. Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah. In this, we live in an environment, what I call a small cap type, right, environment. And small cap have limited resources. And so they're always looking for the quick fix, the quick buck. And I get it. You're trying to get a sale and you want to get your business going. So you're super hyper aggressive, but there's a way to approach the market, and it's doing the hard work that we do. And so when Ken's talking about the nurture campaigns and going through the competitive analysis, we've been a part and created, $70 million companies that did not want, the team refused to do a competitive analysis. Why? Because it's hard work and it's boring as shit. They didn't want to do it. You have to research and research and research and then put it all in an Excel file and then start reporting and analyze it and discuss it. And guess what? You don't see any value, no intrinsic value there. You can't you don't feel like you can monetize that competitive analysis, but you do down the road, right? When you learn your plays as a team and you get better at your plays and better at your plays, and then you run those plays flawlessly. That's what that competitive analysis does, because now you can walk into an account, you can pinpoint what they're buying, how much they're paying, what the product's weakness is, how our product differentiates, and our go-to market strategy with that account. And that's when you win those final games and get you into the Super Bowl. But you have to do that hard work. And when you talk about target market mapping, which Ken mentioned, is another painstaking exercise that no one wants to do, where we go into each major city in a state, and you have 15 major markets throughout the United States, and you go in there and you do a deep dive of who's buying the product, what markets are buying, what channels are buying, and then you start doing all the backfill work to find out who the key contacts are That's all the heavy lifting that nobody wants to do. And so taking this brand, the BluBird brand that we're representing aside, it's that piece that the company in India realized that they needed to bolt on if we were going to achieve the century, the $100 million mark number that the board feels like they can hit. It's, you just can't go out and wing it anymore. You got to have sophistication to a certain level, and that's what Ken and myself bring to the table with the companies that we've worked for and to this company. And I think you can tell that I'm super passionate about what we do and how we do it. And it's a real secret. It's the real secret sauce to what we do is that passion. And so that's what we want to be a part of within an industry is a passionate group of individuals. That's why we went from 130 reps to 60 something, because we fired the non-performers quickly, get through it, move on, and let's go out and get business. And so that's what we like to do.
You touched on a couple of things there that I think were so good. One, the low hanging fruit. We spend a lot of time talking about connection as being like the central theme that kind of makes everything go around in sales and marketing and go to market. And I really liked how you highlighted that it's like sometimes it's about working with the sales reps and the ones that already have connections, already have relationships, because there's nothing as powerful as that trust. People are still doing business with people. It doesn't really matter who they represent or what products are being sold or whether it's B2B or B2C or D2C or whatever you want to put with it. At the end of the day, it's people, borrowing and giving and having trust in those relationships. I mean, it's like when you say it, it's like, wow, what a simple thing, but it's also really genius. And I think you're right. In like that small cap world, it's like, all right, we're just going to go out there and we're just going to, pound the ground and, get people to do stuff. But you guys are taking that approach. And I think that's the second part is this strategic, willing to put in the time and resources into building a viable strategy based on the market itself and the demand that is out there and the buying habits and where are we going to go and what does our product look like. Like, to me, and I know, and I agree with what you were saying, it's okay. Yeah, there's no secret. This is just the fundamentals, but it's like you said, are people really taking the time? I mean, are companies really stopping and taking the time on the front end to do those things?
Nope.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to add that they don't. There's a few mistakes that almost every manufacturer in this type of environment makes, right? And the biggest one is they sit in their ISO chamber in their executive boardroom and they believe everything that they're telling themselves. It's kind of like a divorced couple when they head off into their corners and their friends tell the wife that he's a piece of shit and he doesn't treat you well, and so that's all they believe because that's all they're drinking, right?
Yeah,
they're like,
yeah,
he is
yeah.
he is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And so executives and owners start believing their press clippings, or they think that things are not important, but they're not engaged outside of their executive boardroom. And that's the first mistake. So every step they take, and this is true, every step they take from the product description, who they're engaging with, it doesn't matter what step they take to grow their business. It may be a correct step, but it may be an incorrect step. They don't know because they've got their own belief. How many people, you guys are marketing savvy, how many people have said, well, we can't send that e-blast out because we did it last month?
Yeah.
Right?
Everybody thinks that. Yeah.
I've heard it a million times. And the reality was the open rate was 11% and the click-through rate was 0.05%. No one saw it, stupid.
Yeah.
No one's,
Yeah.
you can send it out every day.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, that is such a good point, though. That is such a good point. But I think the thing is, and I am all for, like, the research element is so important. But, and I know you guys practice this, but like the rubber meets the road in the feedback. So what are you doing? Like, once you kind of done the research, right? And you're like, okay, this is what the numbers, this is what the data is telling us. but that messaging and all that stuff, it's when you get the feedback that you really dial it in. I mean, what does that look like for you guys? Do you have like a process for how you go out and start generating that feedback, so you're not falling in love with your own messaging and your own this and your own that, like you talked about?
Yeah, we do it in different ways, and it's somewhat tracked by either Ed or myself. But we have in the beginning of the BluBird Industries company, they their experience was in premium hoses. 100% of their demand, well, I'm not going to say 100, 80% of the demand for the company was the premium high end hoses. So what they sent to the United States was all premium high end hoses. But when we went out into the field, we started to collect the data. And in about 6 months, we realized that a third of the stores only buy the cheap stuff. So they're not going to buy, right? Because the price point's off. So you're closed for business to 30 to 40% of the marketplace. The others already buy from someone and they give their customers a range. They give them a good and a better, or a good and a best, right? Well, guess what? That other third to 40% is not going to buy from you, because they have their suppliers already in place and they have the complete offering. So we kind of had to go back to the drawing board based on that information, and that information was Brad, was critical, right? So we've revamped it, and now we have Ed has worked with headquarters, and now we have a good, a better, and a best option, and that's a really good real world example of data from the marketplace. Another is um, uh, the smooth cover Kevlar braided hose, where the people in the professionals in the pressure washing industry really beat their products up. And so you have these guys dragging with a significant amount of force the hoses up against uh, brick walls and concrete and oyster beds and all kinds of very, very sharp, bags of knives, whatever they're doing, they're ripping these things apart. And bags of knives. Yeah, I see it all the time.
Nobody's going back to like gently lift a hose around a corner. It's you pull it through. Yeah.
So anyway, the team started working on a recipe of a rubber cover that would be smooth, so it wouldn't be textured and have undulations that could catch, rough and rigid uh, surface that can catch other rough and rigid surfaces. But we want something smooth that is more likely to glide. And they did it. They have one that in their abrasion testing in the laboratory lasted over 4 times longer than the competitors. So it's very rare that we see the other mistake that manufacturers make, and this is why it's so difficult for them, is they don't like to be told that their product is not what they've been believing it is, right? At all. They get very mad. So these guys have improved the product.
I have heard about fist fights at pressure washing shows over products. So
I wouldn't doubt it.
And I mean that in like all seriousness. So
that's funny. I'd like to see that, actually.
Well, if you guys keep attending events in the space, I'm sure you'll get to witness some things. So
we almost
talked a little bit. What's that, Ed?
We almost had some fights. We actually almost had some fights in our booth. It had to do with whether or not we could have alcohol in the booth or not. But that was beside the point.
Bring your bag of knives to the next one.
Yeah.
So you guys talked a little bit about what the sales side of it looked like, and then you guys touched on the marketing, and I didn't mean to pull us out of that. I enjoy talking about the marketing. When you guys, so you're coming into the space and you're looking at this, and you talked a little about, doing the web presence and the nurturing and these different things. Do you have like a specific set of levers that you pull? It's like, okay, here's my formula. I'm going to pull levers 1, 2, 3. Or are you going in with the same approach and it's like, no, every time is unique and we need to look at the landscape to know which marketing and which media levers we're pulling?
No, it's a very specific recipe. I do a lot of. I'm a hybrid. I'm a marketing guy with a marketing background, but I'm a salesperson, right? And I think we're all in sales. Um, but the recipe is you engage the market, you gather data, you're basically a Johnny Appleseed, traveling and engaging uh, as to the best of your ability to capture people that are interested, because those people aren't going to go away. That's going to be the foundation. That's the low hanging fruit, if you will. Then you build your mechanism, your website, your information. You're engaged, so you're listening to what the market is saying. You know your key features and benefits, so you've discovered the customers, the marketplace's pain points. Now you're addressing those in the marketing collateral that you develop, and you're sending that out to all these people that you're meeting. You're meeting people at trade shows. That's a big part of the recipe. So while you're doing that, while you're collecting all this low hanging fruit, you're also messaging everybody on the pain points. You're also sending impressions, branding, advertising. So you're sending impressions out to people that fit your customer persona, and they begin to start seeing. So now we're up if we're talking about fruit, now we're mid-level fruit, right? These are people we've been bombarding with our brand that now recognize us, and Ed touched on this later. So now you go and you see these people, they've heard about you 20 or 25 times, and they recognize you, and the conversation is totally different than if you picked up the phone and cold called them when you started your whole career with that brand. And so that is a that's probably the recipe in a nutshell. Is that, imagine if the customer is an island, and you're trying to take that island in a military kind of way. Your marketing collateral is your stuff coming from the battleship, but what's going to take the island is the soldiers beach landing on the beach and taking it, hole by hole, trench by trench. And that's what we do. We hit them with everything, soften them up, and it is softening them up. And then when
Yeah.
we engage, they recognize us, they know who we are, there's legitimacy. And so my technique and the recipe is to build that legitimacy from day one. And then when you finally get to a customer that had never heard of you, and you had never heard of them, you guys there's familiarity.
Yeah, you
So
asked.
let me recap the strategy. First, we bomb the island, and then we take it by force.
We always should bomb the island first before you send your guys in there.
Right. Well, that's exactly
one of the things Brad and I talk a lot about is the whole concept of like customers buy from who they trust who they like, and they like who they know. And so that sounds pretty similar to kind of your strategy there. It's like, okay, first, like, we got to build recognition. We got to let people know who we are. Then step two is, okay, now we got to show them, like, hey, our product will actually hold up the things we're saying it is, and they have to like us. And then once those three things happen, that's when you have this relationship. And then when someone comes to buy, they're saying, oh, hey, no, I know these guys. I know their product. I've heard other contractors or whoever or distributors say, hey, we use this product. It was really great. We've heard good things. We trust it's going to be good, and we like this company. It seems like they're being fair with us. Yeah, let's buy it. And I've certainly found in my sales experience, like that was the formula that seemed to always work for me, is just like solely make it all, let's build it off of relationships. Let's not double my sales by doubling my cold calls. Like, that's not fun. Like, no one wants to hear, like, hey, if you have a sales goal that's higher than you did last month, the way you're going to get that is just by making more phone calls. Like, that's just spinning your wheels a whole lot more. And I think Brad and I think we talked about a few weeks ago or sometime about how even the further downside of that process is, you've, like, in that first round of calls, you've now captured most of the people who are ready to buy. So that, like, second round, when I'm doubling my calls, like, yeah, I'm doubling my calls, but now I'm doubling it to a bunch of people who are even less likely to buy from me. So it's even harder.
Yeah, it's true.
Ed's back. So when it comes to, I think this is an interesting thought. You guys sell 100% to distributors, right?
Yes.
what is your philosophy on the branding that you do with a product like this? Is it I build the demand with the distributors because if the distributors carry it and recommend it, the pressure washer will buy it? Or is it I need to take the branding all the way to that end user, build this reputation so they're coming into the distributor asking for the product? What strategy do you adopt, or how do you determine, how you go about that?
Ed's got to field this one because I think this is a core fundamental piece of his overall strategy. Go ahead, Ed. Jump on
Oh,
this.
boy, man, ouch. Well, I think again. I don't think it's one way. You have to, no one. Okay, no one really knows BluBird, but they do, right? It just depends on the channel that we're selling in, the market we're selling into. So in some instances, we can go into distribution, and people are in the automotive sector. They're like, "Yeah, we know BluBird. We've heard of BluBird. I have BluBird in my garage." I was talking with somebody the other day at the CETA show, as a matter of fact. He says, "Oh, BluBird, you guys make air hoses for pneumatic tools, right?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, I have 3 reels in my shop." Okay. I mean, that's a market that, has, knowledge of us. And then there's markets like the pressure washing that does not. So one of the things that Ken does so well is we have the Insiders Club that he's created that basically allows end users to be intimately a part of helping us build that brand and that through that channel. And it's highly unique. And we've done that at other companies. We had a first choice club back in another business. Again, with the emphasis on cultivating the end user market so they could build demand for the distributor market. Because if you have leads, the golden lead, right? It's a golden ticket. And you bring that into a distributor and say, "I have this pressure washer who wants to buy 10 of our hoses and 10 of our hose reels. Would you like to do this business with us, sir?" And they say, "Or ma'am, absolutely, we'd love to do it. How can we sign up?" That gets you in the door faster than anything. And Ken does a great job in that. So again, I think it's a multifaceted approach. It depends on how mature the market is with our brand, and immature they are. And so if it's more immature, we see that we need to do some of that heavier lifting with the end users.
And I'll bring up an example. There was a company that was putting together a tool offering, and they wanted to subsidize their tool offering with our safety products at a different company. And this is a company that Ed was the president of, and there was a specific distributor that absolutely refused. We were a smart decision. I don't know whether he was getting a kickback. I don't know what his problem was, but he wouldn't bring us in at all. But when that end user that was creating their tool offering for their subcontractors to purchase directly from them, they needed fall protection and safety equipment. And I knew who they were. We set up a meeting. I told them, "I'll make you any deal. You can pick your price. I need you to help me get into the distribution company that you're marrying to make sure it's all across the United States for you." It was a huge distributor. And the guy's name was Mike. He said, that's perfect. I go, "Yeah, but you're gonna really have to. We're gonna have to work together on this because they're gonna say no." Well, he called me 4 days later. He said, "You were right. They said no, but I told them if they didn't do it, we were gonna walk." If that is a tremendous relationship with an end user of a product, and without that, that deal would have never been done. And that was a multi-million-dollar opportunity that probably continues to pay dividends today.
Wow. I've been in a distribution business, and that's always there's always this concern that's like, I like the product you guys have, but a lot of those companies don't want to be responsible for creating the demand for something that their customers don't know. They don't want to do that. They want to have stuff sitting on their shelves the customers already want to come in and buy, because it's a whole lot easier for them to deal with that than it is to try to educate them on something that the customers don't know. So I like how you guys talk about making that relationship in this world. I mean, what does that look like? I mean, what kind of marketing do you do to educate that end user market?
It's simple stuff, but a lot of it, right? Frequently asked questions, a bullet list of the features and benefits, a list. You as a company have to have knowledge of your industry categories that you are in, and the product is applicable to be used in. So you got industry category, you've got product category, and more importantly, you've got the actual application where the guy's going to use it. You need to know that because all your video collateral, all your printed material, all of the messaging has to be based on those fundamental uses of the product. And then you just create a bunch of it and you keep sending it out there. And even if a person never opens it up and reads it, you're still making an impression with the brand and you're creating legitimacy for your brand. And those tools never fail, but you do have to commit. And you'd be surprised at how many manufacturers don't want to commit to that long, uh, tough road of constantly creating new collateral, new content, more educational content, and begin to educate the marketplace consistently.
It's also understanding where and I agree with Ken 100%, but it's also understanding where your strengths are as a business. In today's world, do you really want to be in a manufacturing business or you want to be in a marketing, sales and marketing? And I think we've been going through that uh, self-assessment of sorts. While we're passionate about manufacturing hose, we just opened a brand new factory, which gives us tremendous capacity, increased capacity. But we also know that we have a robust list of customers. The largest retailers in the world buy our products. And so that's a yes, you have permission to reach out to me and show me what you have additionally to what we're buying from you today. And that is a huge recipe for success. And so now we're trying to bridge that gap of smart product line expansion combined with an outreach of aggressive marketing attributes that Ken has been creating and we will continue to invest in, along with the infield sales and relationship building components. And so with those three combinations, we know we have a really great opportunity for achieving our long-term goals with BluBird and RMX.
I like that. I do want to take a half a step back. You guys mentioned the Buyers Club, and I think this is a really great idea. Ken, tell us a little bit more about like what is that? How does it work? Could someone become a part of it? Like, kind of walk me through. Like, you guys touched on it, and I think it's really cool that you have it. But like, unpack that a bit if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have used this uh, concept before with success, but you've got professionals out there that use our products or the products that we make every day, but not ours, right? So we believe that our product is going to be lighter for them to carry around. It's going to prevent soft tissue injuries. It's going to be better for them. Um, it's going to last longer in the field. The only way to really prove that is to get it in their hands. And when you're in the beginning, you get a certain percentage of distribution companies out there don't want to do any. They want to keep everything the way it is now. They don't. People don't like to change. There are very few influencers in the distribution business, right? Especially the ones that are successful today, because they want to keep doing what they're doing, and then it becomes incumbent on me to get the product in their hands. And there's no better way to do that than at a trade show. Say, hey, I've been thinking about putting a group together of 25. In this case, we got 25 professionals, and we're sending them free samples of new products. They're helping us with the longevity of the product. They were very, very helpful with the smooth cover. Now, a lot of people like our wrap finish on the Kevlar braided hose, but that smooth cover would have never been developed if we didn't have end users coming back to us reporting on what was good and what didn't work so well about that product. And that allows our guys to go back and have the product evolve and get better, and last longer in the field. And so we stay in communication. We created a simple workflow. So every 90 days, these insiders are going to get a message from us that's automated that says, hey, have we sent you anything? Can you give us that report back? And if you haven't received anything in a while, let us know what you're interested in. That comes directly to me. And then I send them a single wire or a double wire or a smooth wrap Kevlar braided hose or our soft wash hose. But all of this innovation is happening because of these people. And guess what? When they're happy and they love the product, the distributors will come.
And that's a way we control that a bit more. There's organizations like Seeds out there and companies that will evaluate your product for you, right? And you send it to them. But this is a way we better develop and cultivate relationships more intimately with the market that we're serving, because I always tell Ken, I love being an agitator.
It always works.
I always like to stress people out with our engagement in the market and agitate. And sometimes we'll really get an upset person with our product. They don't like it. They hated it. And that's somebody I look at and I say, I want to spend time with that person because he's going to make our business better, our marketing better, our people better, our products better, our company better. And so Ken brings those people in, and some of them are naysayers. You can, they're not all proponents of our brand at all, but we're actually earning what Ryan said before, is earning that trust with the customer. We're earning that. We're in the earning stages to show them that we actually give a shit about what we do. And you're not going to be friends with all these people, I assure you. They're going to be, nah, your hose sucks. But that's somebody that we can get some information off of and learn how we can get better at what we do.
Yeah, that for me, that's like super refreshing to hear. My background, I came from a company where we were trying to introduce a product to a new industry, the pressure washing industry. And I can't tell you how many times I brought a problem or something that I heard in the industry from end users saying, hey, I wish this could be fixed, wish it could be fixed. And generally hearing the response of, oh, everybody thinks they're an engineer. They don't know any better than us. Like, why? Like, no, what we're doing is fine. And it can be endlessly frustrating of knowing it's like, okay, yes, the end user of this product, no, they don't have a degree in fluid dynamics and they don't know everything about rubber construction of hoses or whatever, but they still have good feedback. And like, if we can't take that feedback in and listen to them and adjust our course based on what people are saying, then we can have a theoretically good product, but a product that's horrible in the field. And I, like I said, I can't tell you how many times I've heard everybody thinks they're an engineer, just move on. And it's
Ryan, that's a breach. To me, that's a breach of goodwill, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you, like you guys said before, you want to work with people that you like. And if you're a decent human being, you like people that have goodwill. And so if your boss responded back, or someone, in management at the company responds back and says, I don't give a shit what they said, they're meaningless, that's not goodwill. That's the opposite of goodwill.
Right.
We're lucky in this particular case. We really value what they say. And like Ed said, in fact, I'm thinking of specific examples of some hardcore negative Nellies out there that became in a past industry and a past company that became our greatest allies because we continued to go back and say, try this one. We're still working on it. Try this one. You remember Joe West, Ed?
Yep.
That guy, man. He was rough. Our territory manager didn't even want to go talk to him. He was afraid of him.
No, I want somebody.
One of our biggest supporters.
Yeah, as long as they're legit, in their feedback and they're not being abrasive for no reason. We don't spend time with those individuals, but if they have, constructive comments and feedback and they explain why something's not working, and they're willing and they have open, we look for, I always say we try to find the DNA alignment with people. And I think with Brad and you, Ryan, we have good DNA alignment with you guys. And it's the same with our customers. We look for that. And sometimes it might not be the right situational in terms of the relationship at where it's at that point in time. However, we are committed, like Ken said, the goodwill component, and we have that going for us. I'll tell you one of my absolute, and I have to get this plug in, is that one of my secret weapons, is Mr. Hebert. I mean, he is a animal when it comes to marketing, when it comes to sales. there's nobody better in the industry that this individual, that what he does and he puts together, phenomenal effort. I mean, I can literally put him in any situation. I know if I had a foxhole to be in, that would be the guy that would have my back any day of the week, and I can tell you that you guys, he would be there for you as well. So it takes those kind of individuals like Ken to build a team, and it's all about the team that makes this formula what we put together a success. And he's not the only part of it. We have amazing people back in India and others around the country, but it's that team component that you put together and having like-minded people like Ken on it that helps us become successful.
You
Don't
just
cry.
made my day, Ed. Thank you very much. That was very nice.
Yeah, I think, and I think that is one of the things we preach a lot is, yes, the landscape of sales and marketing and trade shows that has certainly changed over the last 20 years. Like, trade shows are different. Like, Brad and I talked to in one of our other episodes about how, like, my earliest memory of trade shows is going to trade shows as a kid with my dad. Like, he was like head of sales for a really large company, and like Armor All was one of the companies he was with. And so, like, my view when I first started going to trade shows was like, hey, here is the customers are coming in. I'm giving them their information. They're looking for information. And like, that is not the case anymore. And I think you guys hit on it really well, is that even though like the landscape has changed where people want to be self-educated, they want to do their own research, they have the ability to do their research. The reality is that even though sales has changed, like, people have not. People still need the relationships. You still need to rely on the teamwork at your company, at working with your customers to get their feedback. Like, that type of communication, that's always been there. It's just the way that we approach it's got to be different now. But it's still, I think the most important thing in sales is building relationships, building trust, getting to know people, and being willing to reciprocate and hear feedback and improve your product. And I think the very first time Ken, you and I spoke, you said, I think you summed up your company and your pursuit is just the pursuit of the perfect hose, or the pursuit of the perfect product.
Yeah.
And I think that sums up really well about what I feel like I'm hearing from you guys over and over again is you are doing everything you can to take in feedback, to change and to grow, to make that perfect product. And whether that exists or not, who knows? But I think it's a worthy pursuit, and yeah, it's cool to see.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. And I can tell you, with all the good we have going on and all the right things, we have a lot of bad things still happening. But we're passionate about making those fixes to our business to make it better. So, thank you.
Yeah.
Ed, I know and Ryan didn't get to come visit. I should have had him out there. You know, the energy, and it wasn't just you two. It was Caleb, and I don't remember everybody's name that I met in the booth, and I apologize.
Bob Isbell, the king of the hose industry.
Yeah, him. I had a nice conversation with him too. But the energy in your booth was like palpable, and that's not always the case. And then I listen to you guys, and I hear you talk about building a sales culture that's committed to the follow-up, and a leadership culture that is committed to doing the heavy lifting, and you're committed, Ed, to attracting talent and having people like Ken, having superstars on your team. I would have to imagine a business owner listens to this and they're going to say, I want that in my company. I want to have those things too. What advice do you give somebody, whether they're new or whether they're taking something they've done for 20 years and like breathe that kind of culture into their business?
Yeah, just give us a shout at 832-982-55. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead, Ed. Answer that question. That's a good one.
I first and foremost, I say put your money where your mouth is, because you can't do it without cash. This isn't going to be nickel and diming. You're going to invest money, but we're going to invest that money, help you invest it in the right way to build the brand. And we've done it many times. So, I mean, that's my advice to an owner or a board that says, hey, we want to get to this next level. How are we going to do it? You got to have the cash flow to be able to support it. And that's what the gentleman in India, what the business, the RMX itself, has been around for 30 years, but it hasn't been at this level for 30 years, right? It took a long time to get there, but now we want to see an accelerant on that next phase of growth. And the way you have to do that is you have to infuse capital into the business, and that's through inventory support, that's through marketing support, that's through sales, through trade shows, all those things. So I would say don't be afraid to spend the money. Is make sure you have a team like we've built over the years, a team that can get out into the market and actually execute the strategy in a very, you know, short period of time, right? I said before 18 to 24 months to cultivate a brand, but you got to, it's easier said than done. But when you back that up, you got to have that patience. And so along with that capital, you got to have patience and trust the process, and do not think you're going to grow a healthy plant by pulling up that seed every 2 weeks, because it will not happen. So Brad, stop doing that with the potatoes.
And if someone listening to this is in your position and they're a leader, maybe they're not the owner and they're a leader and they want to improve, the culture and the performance in their organization, what would you tell them?
Kenny?
Well, I was listening to what you just said, and it's very accurate. I do believe, and this is going to be true for your question too, Brad. It starts with a team. You have to have a team that you can trust. To me, it's no different than what I would imagine owning a sports franchise would be like. You got to bring in somebody with experience in that industry, right? You got to bring somebody in that's been there before, and then you want people who are, and this is critical, passionate about what they do. There are certain types of people that don't feel, it's almost as though they're not living through their vocation to some degree, if that makes sense. And then there are people that are so passionate about what they do, it's blended into the fibers of their life. You hear certain people say, um, I'm not what I do. That's just what I do to make a living, make ends meet. That's somewhat sad. I mean, I get it. You got to have a balance. I understand that everybody does, but I think uh, men and women live to a degree and get their self esteem and the value that they feel for themselves is going to be partially, and that's going to change. How much of that value will change, but is going to be based on how good they are at what they do. So when we go out and put a plan together and then that plan works, why are we so driven? We're driven because we're trying to make our plan work, because we don't want it to fail. Just like a GM at a football team that the owner hires is passionate about winning, being profitable and winning. And then you don't want to change the goalposts on them if you're the owner. So if you were in Ed's position and someone was coming to talk to you, you need to qualify them, right? You need to make sure they're committed to the long haul. You need to make sure that you can give them a proposed budget that you can live with, that will be successful. You need to be confident in your plan. You need to lay out that plan, and then you need to analyze the success or failures of that plan in 60 days, and then 6 months, and then 18 months down the road, and see if you're hitting those goals and targets. Because manufacturers will move the goalpost, right? What they said they would do, it's human nature. What anyone says they will do when they have nothing in their hand is one thing. And then once you've built it after a couple of years, their willingness to give more or dedicate attention or money to budget dollars to this changes, right? So you have to be careful and qualify the company that you're going to work for if you're a winner, right?
And if and
If you've got a 13-3 record, you're going to be fine.
Yeah, and I think
Love
that
it. I love it.
what and just to add one more piece onto what Ken said, you have to be willing to learn and change. And if you're not willing to learn and change, I always tell, Ken's heard this a million times from me, but people change because of pain, not gain. We all know that smoking's bad for you, and until you go to your doctor and the doctor says, hey, look, if you don't stop smoking, you're going to die. Then someone stops smoking, but smoking's not good for you. but it takes that pain component to change. And so learning can be painful. And so if somebody were to try to, duplicate what we do, or what advice would I give them? It would be the learning component. You're not the smartest guy in the room. My wife always says that one. If you're the smartest guy in the room, then you're in the wrong room. And you have to be willing to learn that and be okay. And another one she says, she's very good at these, your ego is not your amigo. And that's another lesson. And so learning, adapting to that change component is very critical for someone to be successful. That's just for me, though. I can't speak to anybody else. Look, I watch all the things that are on LinkedIn and the self-help books and the business books and all those things that I've read. But it's all about putting those successes into action. What does Elon Musk do that's different than Jeff Bezos? And Jeff Bezos has his meetings, and this is how he has his meetings. I'm going to do that. And it doesn't necessarily mean that's going to work for you, but you have to be willing to change and try to figure out what your cadence and your routine is, but be willing to learn and change to find that what you feel is right, your right rhythm.
I think it all comes down to authenticity. And I tell this to my kids every night, like before they go to bed. I tell them, like, hey, tomorrow let's try to be the best you can be. Like, don't try to be like your brother, don't try to be like your friends. Like, be the best you can be. And that's like, I think if we can do that as a business also, then we're going to make progress. We're going to grow. And because I think customers, I think contractors, I think everybody, people are generally very good at knowing if you're not being authentic. And if you're trying to copy other people or copy other people's, like, hey, they grew this way, I'm going to do that exact same thing. And I'm going to copy every single thing they do. Like, if it's not authentic and if it's not real, it's going to be obvious, and it's going to be glaring obvious, and it's probably going to hurt you more than it helped you in the first place.
Yeah. Who was it that said sincerity is the key to winning people over, or sincerity is the key to sales? Once you can fake that, you got the whole thing licked. Was that Carnegie? Was that Carnegie or like P.T. Barnum? Who was that?
It sounds more like a P.T. Barnum than a Carnegie. It sounds like a P.T. Barnum quote. Yeah, if you can, I might have even read that recently. If you can fake sincerity, then you've got,
Man,
guys, I appreciate this conversation.
It might be Groucho Marx.
I think you said it right, Ryan.
I just Googled it.
Yeah, who said it?
I was saying I just Googled it. I think it was Groucho Marx.
Okay.
Who said it? I don't know. Right.
Well, but Ryan, I think what you just said nailed it. I mean, it's simplistic as that, is you say that to your children, and the next day you get up and you want to be the best that you could possibly be that day. And that's so simple, but yet so big of a goal that at the end of the day, can you actually say that? And how many days of a week can you say that? How many days of a month can you say it? And how many weeks of a year can you say that? That's something that's, a powerful just statement right there. And if we could strive to do that, then I'd be happy. I'd be a very happy individual. So appreciate that one. I'm going to put that in my list of pieces I'll say. Thank you.
Love it. Well, thank you guys. I mean, the conversation has been great. I think you guys have so much insight and knowledge. Where does somebody go to find out more, learn about BluBird? Where would you send them to stay in touch with you guys?
BluBirdIndustries.com. And you can reach us through any of the contact us options, and we'll get everything. And I'm Ken.Hebert, and Hebert is spelled like Hebert, Hebert, at BluBirdIndustries.com. And remember, the blue does not have an E in it. We could not afford that. We bought the blue that was $7 instead of the $15 blue. So anyway.
I'll tell you.
And then Ed is ed.marquardt at BluBirdIndustries.com.
I'll tell you,
I can put it in the description of the thing. Yeah,
I'll tell you that a lot of the BluBird passion comes from our CEO Abhinav Rastogi, and he owns how many websites? Like 250 some odd websites. He's a wealth of technology and innovation and passion, and this guy works like an animal. He's young, he's 32 years old, third generation. I try to teach him there is a work-life balance. You don't learn that until later on in life of sorts, and we try to figure that out at some point. But You know, I definitely have to give props to that. I forgot we were talking about hose for a while. So, but it's been a great conversation.
Awesome. We appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you guys so much. Um, I look forward to watching the thing as it happens. I think it's going to be a great story to tell, and 24 months down the road, we'll have to tell what happened, because I know it's going to be cool.